A gigawatt is enough power basically to power 750,000 homes. The Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, that's 1.2 gigawatts, okay? Big plant, right?
Yeah.
I heard that one of the data centers for Microsoft itself might need 5 gigawatts. Last year, the United States added about 60 gigawatts of new energy generation. Sounds like a lot. In that same year, China installed 227 gigawatts of solar alone and 80 gigawatts of wind on top of that. Now, they're not doing it in China because they care about the climate. What they understand is that wind and solar are the most efficient means to bring more energy supply online, power their economy, and lower their electricity bills. Meanwhile, we can't get a transmission line permitted in under a decade. Since 2014, North America has completed 7 gigawatts of interregional transmission. Europe has done 44. China has done 260. I'm Scott Peters. I represent San Diego in Congress, and this is 72 and Sunny, where we have conversations that matter about the challenges and opportunities shaping our region and our country. If you like what you hear, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. My guest today is Scott Peters, Administrative Director of the Energy Policy Initiative Center at the University of San Diego School of Law, 20 years tracking what it actually takes to get energy projects built in California. We're going to talk about why America can't build fast enough, who's making it worse, and what we can do about it. Scott, welcome. Hey, Scott, it's good to have you. It's been a while since we spoke, and I thought maybe it'd be interesting for people to hear your thoughts on what's going on in energy, which is really one of the most dynamic things I'm working with in Congress, and we have such a good expert in San Diego, so thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Glad to see you.
So one of the things we keep hearing is we're going to get a huge surge in energy, and I've heard anywhere from 15% to 25% demand for more energy in the United States. And in the last couple of decades, it's been really pretty flat, maybe 1 or 2% increase. And the reason I'm hearing attributed to that is AI takes a lot of energy, but also electrification and more manufacturing, both under Biden and Trump. So tell me what you're seeing in the terms of the energy increase and maybe a little bit of a local flavor about what that means for folks here.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is an anticipated increase after decades of flat or very low growth. And we knew this was coming for some reasons. You mentioned electrification of transportation and buildings, right, as a strategy to remove natural gas out of the economy, and then have all of those electrified devices and vehicles powered by clean electricity, but also increased manufacturing, which I think probably hasn't happened all that much.
Right.
And so we've anticipated there being some increase in electricity for a while now.
Are you like 15, 25%?
I mean, it's hard to know, but we're in California, we're talking about a pretty significant increase in terms of electric consumption to power all those vehicles, right, to power all those heat pumps in homes. But more recently is the AI data center, right, that has kind of surged to the top of the headlines. And there's estimates of significant needs, as you know.
Should give people a scale this because this is your field. But the thing I heard was, so I'm talking about what a gigawatt is.
Yeah.
Because now since I'm a layman, you'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But a gigawatt is enough power basically to power 750,000 homes. When I went to Fukushima, the Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, that had all the trouble with the flooding from the earthquake. That's just for rain. That's 1.2 gigawatts. Okay, big plant, right?
Yeah.
I heard that one of the data centers for Microsoft itself might need 5 gigawatts. I mean, that's the kind of scale we're talking about?
Yes, this is significant. Yeah. San Diego's peak demand is about 5 gigawatts. So San Diego, whole region, the whole
county, right,
whole county plus a little bit of Orange County for all of SDG&E service territory is about 5 gigawatts.
5 gigawatts, and then one data center would be that much.
I think that's a big data center.
But big data center.
Microsoft, yeah. There's a data center proposed out in Imperial Valley, and I think it's 800 kilowatts or something, or megawatts, excuse me.
Okay.
So it's big, but not that big.
I think there's there's two things we should also talk about, which is reliability and affordability. So here's the thing. On my Energy and Commerce Committee, I have these really nice guys who are Texans. And they used to be all of the above guys when Obama was president or when Biden was president. And now they're best of the above. And they're not really talking about wind and solar. And what they make the argument that, only gas and coal are something you could turn on and off, right? But that's not how energy is being deployed around the country. What we're seeing is the way you describe batteries becoming really part of a large scale providing of the. So what is the energy mix that's going to help us meet this demand? Or you should also what's the demand in California be like? How are we going to meet the demand, the energy mix? What's the energy mix that you think we're going to provide? And then let's talk a little bit about affordability, which lines up nicely with climate goals as a matter of electricity into the house, maybe not in political terms.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe in the current circumstances, people are conflating affordability with fossil fuels.
Right. That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
By the Texans on the committee.
Claiming that that's the way to be affordable and that's the only way to have dispatchable
dispatchable
electricity. Dispatchable meaning you can put it into grid when you need it. It's like pushing the gas on the car. You need to go uphill, you push on the gas, you go uphill. If you're a solar, you can't push the gas on solar. You get what you get.
So how do you deal with this dispatchable thing?
So the way you deal with the dispatchable thing is during the middle of the day when demand is generally low, by the way. We can store up those extra kilowatt hours, megawatt hours, and put them in batteries. And then in the evening, we can discharge those batteries again, put that power back onto the grid. And, we are in this, right? Like this is happening, in my career over the last 10 years. So 5+ years ago, we had a big power outage. Or we almost had a big power outage. You might recall the governor sent around a text to everybody through his emergency.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, I remember sitting in my house. It was 80 degrees. It was hot. I get this, my phone's buzzing. And I looked at my wife and I said, this is unusual. This has never happened before. There was a little bit of storage.
Was it just to you, an energy expert?
Was it just, so there was a little bit of storage on the grid at that point. And it helped. It really did. It might have been the difference between the grid going down. But when I now look at this, at a typical spring, summer, fall day in the state of California, there is a lot of storage. And in fact, there are some days when in the evening, energy storage is the biggest source of electricity. Sometimes it's second, but no matter how you slice it, it's significant. So the shape of the grid, the structure of the grid, the supply, the way we're operating the grid fundamentally changed in the last 10+ years. Because of battery technology. And as a kind of an insider, I look at these curves and I'm just blown away that much storage is being deployed today in California every evening.
It's also funny because when I remember a few years ago, there was a real cold snap in Texas and they had such a problem that a lot of people lost power. And some people, I think 30 some people died. It was terrible. And there's a lot of criticism then that the Texas legislature had underregulated, hadn't really planned for these emergency events that it knew were going to come. Well, they did, and what they did to reduce their risk of blackout from 10% to 1% was not more natural gas, but it was solar and batteries. So, what was it like? I just can't get them off this notion that the only dispatchable, reliable thing is natural gas. It's become like religious for them. Yeah. But that's actually not what the utilities are doing.
No, and that's not what we're actually seeing. Yeah. If you sort of closed your eyes and listened to what's happening out of the federal government, federal administration, the current administration, you would think that we were in 1980. More fossil fuels, coal. Streamlining nuclear. Now we can talk more about nuclear, about that being a carbon-free source, but, you wouldn't think that we were in 2026 where the vast majority of new additions are all renewable. The amount of coal electricity nationwide, I think is just a few percentage points, right? It's like 5%. And so, the idea, there was a funny tweet out of the DOE, I don't know, maybe sometime in early 2025, and it was a picture of a lump of coal, and it said something like "I'm back, baby," or something like this, But really, it's like back. It's a declining.
The United States is declining because natural gas kicked its butt, and what it did
economics.
It's economics, It's just too costly to pull coal out of the ground in the United States because it's so much cheaper from fracking technology now to get natural gas.
Yeah. So yeah, natural gas killed coal.
So
not
we haven't
environmental
had,
regulation.
We haven't had to regulate coal
Right.
because natural gas killed
Yeah,
it.
the market took care of it.
Yeah, and so I guess I would ask you, it seems obvious to me that if we don't produce more energy, that costs will go up. How do you see like this surge in demand? How's that going to affect San Diegans and their energy bills, which I think are already high?
Yeah, California has some of the highest rates in the nation.
Highest bills.
Highest, thank you.
Highest rates, not highest bills.
Highest rates among the lower of bills because we don't have severe weather, really. I mean, we do along like up the central part and in the eastern part of the state. But compared to the rest of the country, you know, if you're living in Minnesota, there's been a lot of news out of Minnesota. There's a lot of snow and ice and cold. Like we're nothing like that. Right. So they require much more
and air
heating and cooling. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So our rates are very high. Our bills are not as high as some other places. Nonetheless, there's an affordability issue in California around electricity supply. Now, you know, renewables really aren't a driver. The shift towards renewables hasn't been a huge driver. We have paid more, I guess, over time, maybe earlier on than we are now. But some of the drivers now are wildfire cost or prevention and recovery.
30% of bills are wildfires.
Yeah, so that's a huge cost. There's also some infrastructure, transmission distribution costs, and then a final kind of maybe surprising piece is the subsidy for rooftop solar. And happy to go into details and explain that if needed. But the shift,
did the Public Utilities Commission take care of that?
Partly.
First, finish what you're going to say.
Those are kind of the drivers of high rates in California. Now, you're right. You know, supply and economics 101, supply and demand. So there's going to, depending on how fast the demand goes up, I think it's going to be pretty hard for us to keep up.
Right.
I think it's going to be pretty hard for us to keep up. I mean, you know, there are headwinds. You know, there are headwinds and tailwinds, I guess you'd say, and there's some headwinds on bringing online new infrastructure, new transmission lines, new power plants, no matter what kind of power plant they are.
I would say something too, maybe about transmission. I've been working a lot on transmission. If just from a climate perspective. Oh, by the way, the point I was going to make before was that you can, because affordability is such an issue, one, and we know we need more power, two, and we know that for a lot of reasons, that the fastest power to the grid is wind and solar.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a 5-year delay on natural gas. That the affordability issue and the climate issue line up pretty well. Mm-hmm. So I can be a climate advocate without saying climate, because if I talk about affordability, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And I guess the best example of that I would talk about is, I just talked about what Texas did, right? Texas, by the way, is leading the world in wind. Mm-hmm. I think behind China only, if you just looked at Texas as a unit. And it's not because, and they know energy. I go to Texas all the time because I deal with energy. They know energy and they're making the smart decision. They will be a leader in solar because they're deploying that. So that's where the market takes us. And I think that people who are concerned about climate action and the distaste for that in the Trump administration should be somewhat heartened that that's where the market wants to go.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll talk about this later, but, in terms of, I guess it's like the news about the demise of the clean energy transmission is premature, right? Like you might seem like everything's falling apart, but the reality is that the trajectory is heading toward decarbonization.
Yeah. I want to just say my best example. We talk about China later, but what's China doing? Our numbers are a little bit different, but I think like last year, so 2024, let's say, China installed 90 gigawatts of coal, right? Because it is not economical here, but it is cheap other places, and we should try to keep it in the ground if we can as a matter of foreign policy. But 90 gigawatts of coal, which is a lot. It's the same as California's demand, right?
It's a little bit more than California's peak demand, yeah.
But 80 of wind and 227 of solar, 247 gigawatts of solar. That's what China, they're not climate advocates. They don't care. They don't give a crap about climate. They're doing it because that's the economic choice that they make, right? So I've been working a lot at the federal level about trying to figure out how to do that. And one of the things we've come across, and this is something that the clean energy industry expresses to us, is a concern about permitting. You don't do as much on permitting, but if you want there's a guy named Jesse Jenkins at Princeton. You probably know. I'm a proud Democrat who voted. I voted for the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest down payment on climate action in the history of the world, right? Billions of dollars. And I was very proud of that. We're also proud of the infrastructure bill that we put in, would support trains and other, climate friendly things. But I'm just as embarrassed at how little got built. The best example was, it's not really climate related, but we put $43 billion aside for closing the digital divide. It was rural broadband was what we all came in understanding, but we knew there's a problem with rural access, but in the pandemic, when everyone was trying to go online to go to school, we learned that the digital divide, we knew this, but we really learned how the digital divide exists even in wealthy cities like San Diego, right? So we put $43 billion aside, and 3 years later, Republicans took over Congress, and they did what we would do. They called a hearing to say what the heck's happening, right? And they pointed out that not one line had been built with $43 billion, not one.
Yeah.
And we get to call a minority witness. They call 3 witnesses. We call 1. Our witness, very cheerfully, she explained that that 20 states have almost completed the 14-step process we laid out to get the money. And she was not embarrassed, but I was embarrassed. And so, to me, I think it's great if we're able to put this money aside and dedicate it to this thing. But if it doesn't get built, it doesn't matter. It doesn't help the climate.
Yeah.
And so I've been working a lot on permitting and how to make things go faster. One of those bills is people might have heard of CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. The grandparent of that was something called the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. It was signed, I believe, on January 1st, 1970 by Richard Nixon. It was the first environmental law. And the idea was very simple. We'd been making such mistakes, rivers were on fire, that the idea was, that if you want to make a major federal decision that could have an effect on the government, on the environment, you have to analyze what the impacts will be, and you have to look at the alternatives before you make that decision. Very simple, right? And we went on for a long time with that law, but it's really morphed. And now, because it's the most litigated environmental law, it's very defensive, and the process to do a EIS, environmental impact statement, on any kind of project was getting up to be 4 years, and then litigation would be 4 years after that, and it meant that a lot of stuff couldn't get built. And so I've been saying, since the market wants to give us renewable, right? I think we should get out of the way, and that's been my effort in Congress. I just want to emphasize that the reason I want to modernize the environmental laws from the 1970s is to help the environment.
Yeah, we have an annual symposium in last November. We talked about affordability, and we had a CEQA attorney, Laura Zagar. She's one of the board of advisors of our center, and she gave a great presentation talking about some real common sense ways to reform CEQA. And the example she used, she was the CEQA attorney on the Klamath River when they removed the dam from the Klamath River. And so they had certain constraints. They had time constraints.
In Oregon, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been NEPA, right?
Yeah, it would have been NEPA. Okay. Sorry. It would have been NEPA, but she worked on that project. It's on the border. I'm not sure if
it might be Washington.
Maybe part of it, but in any case, she talked about, there's a project to remove a dam to help restore this river back to some semblance of what it was before. And it has all kinds of natural and cultural significance. And there were these barriers and roadblocks and preventing that project. Now it went forward, and she's got great ideas on ways to reform, ways to be more flexible when it comes to mitigation. So if you damage a particular area, what can you do to mitigate or offset that damage? So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can happen. There's been a lot of attempts in California, not at NEPA, but at CEQA, but it's a tough challenge.
Well, I think the thing is that the moment's ripe right now because, as I said, the market wants to build clean stuff. But one of the things Jesse Jenkins says, if we don't triple the size of the grid in the next couple decades, we'll lose all the climate benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act because you won't be able to hook up renewables. So there's a climate imperative, but there's also we found that we have allies in labor on building energy resources, allies in Washington labor. So, I mean, the pipe fitters, the UA wants to build pipelines, and the electricians, IBEW, they want to build lines. And so I think, you know, they're also frustrated with the fits and stops in the federal permitting. So you had, they're mad about the Keystone Pipeline. Not my favorite project, but I get it. They wanted to work on it. But recently, Trump pulled the plug on something called Revolution Wind, which is an offshore wind facility on the coast of New England. It was already permitted. It was under construction, billions of dollars already in the ground. And they pulled these people off the job. And, you know, labor was really mad at that. So I think we could provide some certainty and get out of the way. But the reason I would say we want to do it in service of the environment is, you know, you have to do these amazing reviews to replace these extensive reviews to replace a coal plant with something renewable when it's obviously environmentally friendly. You know, you try to build a train project to get cars off the road. It gets a lot of process, and we should think about how to make that go faster.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more. I think there's been a lot of discussion outside of the energy realm, but you know, this idea of abundance and or the politics of abundance, and one of the things is, you know, government has to be productive, efficient. It has to be able to deliver. You can't just say, here's a couple $1 trillion, but actually make it happen, show results, make progress. So I think there's a growing push in this direction
and Democrats should have learned that in the last election because we came out with 29% approval. And despite this huge $1 trillion infrastructure bill, the big IRA bill, which had a lot of things, you know, about drug pricing, everything else, we were the party that couldn't get anything done. So we can't be married to this process. We have to think about product. I just remember the city council. I remember I wanted to do a roundabout in one neighborhood that the neighbors really wanted, and it would cost about $100,000. I could have put that money together, but the environmental review was going to cost $100,000 for something like that. Simple benign. So one thing I think about CEQA is like, why do we regulate a surface parking lot as though it's a coastal wetland? I would say that if you're really concerned about the environment, regulate, you know, make it hard as hell to build a huge subdivision on the coast in real resource. But like you want to replace a surface parking lot with housing, get out of the way. And that's my view with energy too, because we're making it really hard. I would say the other thing we should talk about in what's happening in the federal level is Trump's war on renewables. So I told you he hates offshore wind, and he doesn't make a secret of it. He's pulled the plug on 5 projects. All of the courts have ruled he can't do that. And then what he's also doing is to get a permit for a wind project on federal land, he's requiring that the Secretary of Energy, Doug Burgum, Interior, personally sign off on all 69 steps of getting a permit. So including like, I want to go survey the site, you know, put up some meters to see if wind would be enough to, has to have Doug Burgum signature. So that's a way to kill it. And so any deal we do on permitting, which would deal with NEPA, would deal with transmission, and the Republicans are going to want to talk about oil and gas, should involve certainty about permitting. And I've got a bill on that. It's bipartisan in the House. So, you know, you have to give everything a fair shot, and you have timelines you have to observe. And that's going to be a hard conversation for Republicans to have with Trump.
Yeah. Again, you know, if you close your eyes, you feel like it's 1980 with the energy policy coming out of the White House, and it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense because that's not where the market is.
Right.
And you know, in addition to the permitting issues, you know, we're in Trump 2.0. So it was, you know, Obama went one way, Trump went the other way, Biden went one way, Trump came back the other way. So it's been this whiplash effect in the energy sector for you know, not just
Right.
energy generation, electric vehicles, heat pumps, everything.
Yeah. Efficiency standards.
Efficiency, yeah. Just this whiplash, and I think the key word you're using is uncertainty.
Right.
There's just tremendous uncertainty in the marketplace. You don't know what's next.
And by the way, that makes everything expensive too, because
Yes.
you're taking a risk. You're going to want to get paid for that risk. You're going to want a
Absolutely.
bigger return, and consumers are going to have to pay that.
Absolutely.
I talked to one big European energy company in my office in D.C., not the one that was doing Revolution Wind, but they said, look, even though the courts are ruling in favor of these issued permits, which would make sense, they said, investing in the United States to us in energy is now like, we think of it like Vietnam or Brazil. And you think about what that costs in terms of prosperity for the country, but also how much more we're going to have to pay to get things back
Yeah.
if we have to cover that risk.
Yeah, it's sort of energy policy by grievance or energy policy by
Right.
personality, not very strategic, not very forward thinking, not very, it's not an investment mindset. It's more of a, I don't know, like a buffet mindset. I like that, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So yeah, it's a little bit, it's counterproductive in the least.
See, I'm sort of like, I think I take the let the market decide, and also I think, as I said, climate advocates should take that view as well, because the market's pulling other countries to renewables, and not just for climate reasons, but for economic reasons. Just on China, you mentioned China. This notion we're going to compete with them if we're building this slow. The other transmission statistic I have is, so interregional transmission, really important to reliability for competition, right? If I can bring cheaper energy in with a wire to your area, I can bring prices down. And for, using renewables, getting the electrons from sunny Arizona to Detroit where they're needed. Since 2014, we built about, North America's built about 7 gigawatts of interregional transmission, high voltage transmission. The number in South America is 22, in Europe 44, in China it's 260. So 7, about half of that in the United States, so 3.5 versus 260. And we're not going to win any AI war if we don't get things going.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up AI in this context, because there seems to be a realization at the federal level, the current administration, that there is an imperative to get it right with AI to compete with China, not just with the government, with the industry. With industry, it's very clear. But when it comes to energy, it doesn't seem like that's an issue.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
It's not an issue.
Or
Or other things, other parts of the...
I sit in these hearings where you really get a sober taste from the witnesses that we should act, and then you get a lot of speeches from the dais about how we should act, and then we still haven't had a hearing in my committee this term on transmission, even though I believe the chairman's sympathetic to it. I'm just not sure we're responding. We're rising to the challenge for sure.
Yeah.
One other topic we hear a lot about is community input, and I think that's oversold with NEPA. I think most NEPA is litigation. First of all, it's not successful, but a lot of it's filed by competitors and by NIMBYs, and not really taking care of those underserved communities that we think are supposed to be served, but by taken care of by big law firms instead. Dusty Johnson, who's a Republican from South Dakota, and I just introduced and passed an e-permit bill, which is the idea is to digitize all of this information. And so from the inside of the government, it makes it easier to get at the same stuff. Because it passes, on paper, literally on paper, it passes from place to place and not understood, but also provides a way for communities to get input in a way that's much more efficient and much more understandable for people than scoping meetings and everything else that they haven't heard of. So we hope that that's helpful on the front end, because as we reform, I think we have to take some time out. A lot of that time process is the front end, and we have to figure out how to make that more efficient.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I would say in the last 10 plus years, I've noticed that there's a trend. Generally, I mean, it's built into some of these processes, but a trend toward more community input.
What's next for you? What are you working on?
We have the Energy Academy, which I think you already know about. It's a 4-day kind of intensive instructional program.
What time of year is that? How do people find out about it?
It's spring and fall on our website.
Okay.
So USD, University of San Diego, EPIC is our,
Right.
and we're partnering with the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative on that,
Right.
also based at USD. And it's a 4-day program, some in-class instruction, field trips, interactive activities. We like to say that the goal is to raise the energy IQ of the region, sort of help level set folks on, facts and figures and how things work. And it's, our role generally is more of a neutral. We're not aligned with any part of the industry or any party or anything like that. So we're trying to, be neutral in this way. So it's been a lot of fun. I know a couple of your staff have come through.
Yeah, they loved it.
And it's working well. We're also doing, as you know, we support a lot of local climate action planning work that's continuing.
Mm-hmm.
City of San Diego is in the process of kind of ramping up a new cap update. We're currently working with the City of Encinitas on a cost benefit analysis, which was called for by their city council.
Right.
So just trying to help them understand a little bit more of the cost impact, both to the city budget and to the residents and businesses who might be affected. What else do we have going? We have a project from a grant from the San Diego Foundation to do an analysis looking at what is the impact of all the climate action plans in the region.
Right.
And we did this previously for the county, the Regional Decarbonization Framework, which is another project.
Right.
So we just took a look at all of them, and now we're updating that analysis to see, if you took all of the commitments, what does it add up to compared to the targets that we're trying to reach? And then what are some sort of headwinds, tailwinds, to reaching those goals. And when we originally started the project, the goal was to say, what is the gap? So when we reduce emissions down to as much as we can, how much more would we have to do to get, net zero or close to net zero? And then the Trump election happened and things started getting canceled. And so we started thinking, well, we need to talk about some challenges. So headwinds, tailwinds. So that's a project. It's going to be an interactive web-based display on some of the data, which should be fun. Yeah. That's a good taste of some of the stuff we're doing.
Good. Well, first of all, you've always been one of my energy gurus here. I appreciate you, this expertise we have right here in San Diego. And I think that's great you're advising the cities. I would say on my mind are a couple adaptation issues. We could talk about this someday in the future, but obviously fires are still a concern. The fires are more intense, and obviously we got big threats in 2003, 2007. I see that recurring, and then we saw these floods. And in southeastern San Diego that really took out a lot of homes. So it's a two-headed monster for us, I think, in San Diego County, and I hope that cities are giving some attention to that end of it, because a lot of climate change is inevitable at this point. There's only so much you can do at the local level to mitigate it, but we really have to be ready when the challenges come.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know you'll help us with that. So.
Well, I mean, we don't do a ton in the adaptation piece, but there is some overlap. But yeah, I think you could say that all adaptation is local.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your work.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Scott, thank you. This has been exactly the kind of a conversation. It was a little wonky, but I think we need more of in this country, one where the facts come first and the politics follow. Here's what I hope you're taking away from this. First, America faces the biggest surge in energy demand in a generation. Data centers, manufacturing, population growth, it's all coming. It is coming fast. The question isn't whether we need more energy, it's whether we can build it. Second, our permitting system is a huge bottleneck. A process designed in 1970 is choking off the energy and infrastructure we need in 2025. It's not protecting the environment. It's delaying everything, including the clean energy projects that would help the environment. And the Trump administration is making it worse by playing favorites instead of fixing the system. Third, this is solvable. Bipartisan permitting reform exists. Our E-Permit Act passed the House unanimously. It had support from the American Petroleum Institute, the Chamber of Commerce, and manufacturers and environmentalists. Our transmission reform, the Speed and Reliability Act, has support from the National Resources Defense Council and the Environmental Defense Fund. The problem isn't that we don't know what to do. The problem is that we haven't done it yet. And every day we wait, China builds further ahead and our economy is worse off. If you wanted to learn more about energy policy in San Diego and California, please visit the Energy Policy Initiative Center at USD. That's sandiego.edu/epic. And if this conversation moved you, tell your representative, whatever their party, you want permitting reform that works for all energy sources, not one side's favorites, all of them. So William from San Diego asked about my position on our deficit and what needs to be done to reduce spending to be in line with tax revenue. Neither political party is taking this ticking time bomb seriously. Well, I am taking this seriously, William. I am the co-chair of the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum, which has been around for a few terms now. It's Republicans and Democrats who are trying to inject debt and deficit into federal decision-making. I know you're frustrated with how that's going, as am I. But right now, we have the highest deficit or debt compared to GDP that we've had since World War II, maybe even in excess of that. And that's going to create a tremendous problem. We're already seeing that the cost of interest that we pay on that debt has become the biggest part of our budget, maybe except for Medicare and maybe passing Medicare soon. What that means is that every year we pay our tax dollars to pay off the cost of doing what we did years ago because we borrowed money. Republicans and Democrats throw bombs at each other about bills we passed that added to the deficit, but the real crime is that every year we're borrowing about $2 trillion, which is about, I don't know, something like 9% of GDP. We need to get that number down to 3% of GDP. We've got a resolution that we're trying to pass in Congress that's bipartisan to set the number at 3% of GDP. That would get us on a fiscally sustainable track. And also I'm co-author of a bill to create a bipartisan task force on debt and deficit to really get this under control with facts and to force a vote in the House and the Senate. It's really hard for Congress to do it because if one party steps out, the other party bashes them. It has to be bipartisan. So we're really trying to tackle this issue, and I think it's an important issue. And I would just say also young people need to be really concerned about this issue because this is theft from my generation to your generation. This is our generation paying for stuff today with money that you'll have to pay tomorrow, and that's wrong. A constituent from Escondido asked, can a provision be put in place that denies congressional representatives a paycheck and benefits if the government shuts down? I'm all for this. I have a bill called No Budget, No Pay. In California, they actually did this. California takes a lot of grief, but California was not doing its budget on time for a long time. And they passed a rule that if you don't pass a budget on time, you'd be docked your pay for every day. And the first year that rule was in effect, they were 3 days late. And then when they realized, oh, this is my money on the line, they never passed the budget late again. You may not like what's in the budget, but it was on time and it was passed. And I think that the Congress members need the same incentive in Washington. Let's put our own money on the line because what happens now is a shutdown. You can defer your pay and then get it later. No. If we don't do our job, we don't get paid. I think it makes sense. And we'd love your help in calling on my colleagues to pass that bill and get us back in line. Tom from San Marcos asked how Trump captured the grand old party. He says, quote, for decades I voted Republican, every election, no more. Why do your GOP colleagues follow such an unprincipled man? I mean, I have the same question myself, Tom. And I respect that we have political differences and that Democrats lost the election. I know that has consequences, but also I sometimes say each of us was elected to office in the House of Representatives on the same day as Donald Trump. We have our own job to do, and we should carry our principles and our beliefs on our own. And that's really not been the case. They've just not been willing to take a battle with Trump on the traditional things that have defined the Republican Party that you probably appreciated, the rule of law, or national security, or a balanced budget, and the kinds of and free trade. All those things have been blown up by Trump, and we're just not hearing anything from our Republican colleagues. I think that maybe this election will teach them a lesson. Maybe as Trump becomes more and more of a lame duck, that his power will wane, but I'm certainly waiting to see that myself. We really need two functional political parties, and right now we don't have that. I'm Scott Peters. This is 72 and Sunny, and I'll see you next time.